Welcome back to the Dylan Shea channel. Today we're discussing whether Gareth Southgate should be sacked. Now, first of all, I agree sort of with both opinions, well, I don't agree with both, but I can see why for both sides of why he should be sacked, why he should stay. I do agree with one more than the other, of course. That'll be more towards the end of the video, but you'll sort of notice with my attitude towards the situation really throughout the video. First of all, let's talk about both sides. You know, what's the pros thinking? The people who are pro Southgate, what are they thinking? I think they're thinking that they're just enjoying the football, they're enjoying the great environment at England at the moment, how far they're going in tournaments. This is the furthest England have been in a while, the last few tournaments under Southgate, seeing how exciting the young team is. And I think progression, I think there has been progression every single tournament under Southgate. We will get more into that a bit later. But I think if you're against Southgate, you think he's a bit of a loser and you don't like him very much. I've seen literally about 2 hours ago Simon Jordan saying that he's a loser. A bit harsh, I think. I think there's that thing of, oh, we need to take it to the next step and get someone else in to take us to a trophy, an international trophy, which is something that England haven't won yet under Gareth Southgate. Let's look at the history of Southgate, well, in his England career so far. He came in November 2016. This was 5 months, about 150 days after England lost 2-1 to Iceland in, well, what's one of the biggest disappointments in English history. It was in the Euros, it was in I think it was the round of 16. You know, England have come a long way. This, for me, is the worst period of English football in history. You have to consider as well, 2 years prior to that they went out in the group stage of the 2014 World Cup, in a group stage with Uruguay, Italy and Costa Rica. They came bottom of that group. I think it's a good idea to go into every single tournament that Southgate has gone into and managed, so then we can come out with the outcome of, is it good enough? Let's start with the 2018 World Cup. Now, leading into this World Cup, you know, you have to think of where England were, I think, under Roy Hodgson, and it was just terrible. Like I said, I think it's the worst that English football has probably ever been. So for Gareth Southgate to come in, he won 8 of his 10 qualifiers for the World Cup and drew 2, so they were undefeated in fact. And I think that's one thing you can say about Gareth Southgate's England, is that they've never underachieved. You look at this World Cup alone, you see Germany, Spain, Portugal, could argue Brazil. I mean, even Argentina have lost to teams like Saudi Arabia. They only beat Australia 2-1. One thing for me you can't say about Gareth Southgate's England is they haven't underachieved. They've always beat the teams they have to beat. The consistency has been top tier. In this tournament, they reached the semi-final of the World Cup, and I mean, what a turnaround in 2 years. You go from losing to Iceland 2-1 to getting to the semi-final of the World Cup, and I think just the environment, it felt like England were just completely together. It felt like the whole squad, there was a great bonhomie between everyone after that 2016 performance, disappointment, and you had moments like the Kieran Trippier free kick, which I think is one of the best moments in English history in terms of football-wise. But the actual argument, even today, why Southgate should be sacked, stems from this tournament actually. You look at 2 teams in particular that Gareth Southgate faced. Start with Croatia. In the 2018 World Cup, they beat every team they had to beat. Now, to me, as someone who, I think because I support Spurs, I don't put too much of an expectation on things. But for me, I think when you do beat Sweden, when you do beat Panama, Tunisia, I still think they're good wins. You know, Colombia as well, I think are a good team. So to beat them, I thought was good. But they did lose to Croatia. The first, you know, very tough team they faced. They did lose to. But to me, that's the point. You're supposed to sort of lose to teams that are better than you. And I thought that Croatia were better than England in that moment in time. They had, you know, Rakitic, Kovacic, Brozovic. Let's not forget they had the Ballon d'Or winner in their midfield as well, who completely controlled the game. They had Mandzukic, who was a super experienced striker. Perisic was in his prime. They had the best centre-back in the world in Dejan Lovren. Obviously not, but he still was a good centre-back at that time, still is now. So I think losing to Croatia, I think Croatia were just a lot more experienced and ready for that moment than Gareth Southgate's England. The other team is Belgium. Belgium sort of did disrespect England in this tournament And Belgium have actually beat Gareth Southgate's England 3 out of the last 4 games. So you can sort of see a pattern there. They faced Belgium twice in this tournament alone and lost twice. And you could tell Belgium were the better team. But again, I thought Belgium were way more ready for that tournament. That was Belgium in their prime, in their peak. They sort of had a golden generation. So I don't think that was a terrible loss for England, both of them. So in the 2018 World Cup, bear in mind, Gareth Southgate's first competition, international tournament. For me, it was a massive step up in 2 years. Great progression there. Well, maybe not the best football, but it was good. It was exciting, and I think they did well to get to a semi-final of a World Cup. They did what was expected, and they couldn't go further. To me, they just got beat by the better sides. Now, the next tournament, the one we seen last season, Euro 2020, England came in with this one with more expectation than 2018. So there was more pressure on Gareth Southgate. And for me, I think him and the players completely delivered. I think in the group stages, we sort of saw both sides of Gareth Southgate's England. There were some dull performances, good performance against Croatia, who they actually beat this time. So that was a big step up for them. It showed progression. It showed they can beat a Croatia now. And that Croatia team, it was a good team last year. It didn't completely disappear. We've seen this season, this World Cup, that Croatia still are a very good team, and they beat them comfortably, I thought, but they were dire performances against Scotland and who was the other team? Czech Republic. It wasn't good enough, but they did get through and they did top the group. So at the same time, can you really complain? In these games, in these group stage games, the game against Scotland, the game against Czech Republic, they were, one criticism I do have for Gareth Southgate is it is conservative. And I think last season he didn't have to be as conservative, as he was. I think they could have pushed on more, had better performances. In a different world, they could have gone out in that World Cup because they were not brilliant in that group stage at all. The knockout stages came, they beat Ukraine 4-0. To me, that was an impressive performance. They actually destroyed Ukraine. But then Germany. And now to me, this is the biggest win in Southgate's career. The 2-0 comfortable, clean sheet against Germany, by the way. Let's not forget, this Germany has absolutely mentally destroyed England in the past. How many times have Germany beat England and knocked them out of tournament? A lot. So for them to come over the line in this one, I thought was a huge result. And I'm not having that Germany were not a good team. They were. They had very good players on the day. In the semi-final, they beat Denmark. This Denmark is a team that beat France a couple of months later, twice in a row. This was not a bad Denmark side. What did England do? They got past them and they won the game. Into the Euros final. Now, how you can go in 4 years or 5 years from that dire situation in 2016 to the one now in 2021, well, last year, I think Southgate deserves huge praise for that. A huge amount of credit. Completely changed the environment of English football, I think. Okay, now the final. Now this is where lots of people sort of turned on Southgate. Not everyone. I still think most people were Southgate in, but there were ones, especially online, ones with big platforms actually coming out and actually, really criticising, going heavy on Southgate. I mean, it's just weird. It's a bit odd to me. I think it was 1-1, was it? It wasn't a terrible performance from England. Was it a bit conservative? Yes, I think it was, but you have to consider as well, this Italy side were the best side in that whole tournament. They came into it undefeated. They came into it undefeated in 30 games or something? They smashed every team. They made Belgium look very average. By the way, I thought they were the best team that whole tournament. And what I don't understand is people give Southgate this loser mentality. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's because he's a good guy or something. So tell me how this makes sense. I completely don't understand it. Are you telling me if Rashford, Sancho, Saka score their pens that Southgate isn't a loser? It just doesn't make any sense at all for me. Now, I'm not pinning the blame on those 3 players. But this is the narrative that people have gone down, that Southgate is a loser, he can't get over the line. He took you to a penalty shootout in the Euros final. That's not a loser sort of mentality. That is on the players then, to score the penalties. That is not on the manager. And I don't understand how the players winning a penalty shootout confirms whether your manager is a bottler or a winner. I just don't understand that. Okay, so coming into this tournament, the one that's currently still going on, and the one England were just knocked out of against France. What has Southgate done? Now, Southgate has, let's look at the good things. Southgate has came in, changed, I think, the environment within the England fan base, within the England camp. If we look at what else has he done, he's got to a semi-final of a World Cup. He's got to the final of a Euros, and I think he's completely changed everything really in England with the England national team. He's also done outstanding in the qualifiers and made England a very consistent team. Now, let's look at the sort of bad things that Southgate has done in the last 2 years. I think conservative football is one. He has been a bit negative, I think, in the past, and even at times in this tournament, especially in his subs. His subs, they were actually terrible. I think he also has his favourites, which we did see in the France game as well. I think the ones are Maguire, Mount and Sterling. And he's also treated a few players, in my opinion, quite unfairly. I think Maddison, Trent and Jack Grealish. And these are what I would sort of say these are the most creative players that England have. I would say there's a bit of a pattern there. His favourites are very systematic players, I'd say. And then his least favourites are more individualists type players. He also had a really bad loss to Netherlands in the semi-final of the Nations League a couple of years ago. Sort of another time where he hasn't got over the line against a team that at that time I thought England were better than Netherlands. So I think he probably should have won that one. And he also came into this tournament with pressure. England have been, for the first time under Gareth Southgate, off form. They had a really poor Nations League. They lost to Hungary twice. They got smashed by Hungary as well. I think if England came second in this group, in this World Cup, and then went out to France, I think there would be a really strong case for Gareth Southgate to be sacked. Okay, so now let's look at, for me, the most important thing. Has there been progression under Gareth Southgate? So from 2018, that World Cup, to 2021, last year, I would say yes. They are way more mature. The mentality is a lot better. They're more ready to win an international trophy. I think the control of midfield is way better. I think the play style has improved as well under Gareth Southgate. I think in previous years it's been a bit conservative. I think now it's a lot better. There's more control in that midfield. The possession is just a lot better. And the pressing is something that I'm actually way more impressed with. They win the ball back really quick. They recover it and they're just more attacking now, and I think more likely to score. So yeah, I do think there has been progression under Gareth Southgate in this last year. Now let's talk about this World Cup. Now they beat Iran 6-2, I thought was an amazing performance. They had a good performance against Wales as well, really good. So they were really good games. The USA one, yes, it was flat. It was the odd Southgate performance that is usually thrown into an international tournament. I think you'd want better in that one, I do. But overall in the group stage, I thought was very impressive. They then beat the Africa Cup of Nations champions, which is not easy. These people who say that Southgate gets an easy chance to go to the final, did Spain have an easy chance against Morocco? Did Portugal? No, they didn't. It's not easy. Did Brazil? No. It's not easy to get into these further stages in a tournament. Teams are fighting for their lives. I think England are so good at not being complacent, being professional and getting the win against these not as good teams. And they made light work of it. Like, they made Senegal look easy. I thought it was a really impressive performance. Now let's talk about France, because they lost to France and that same Southgate thing. He faces a tough team and he goes out. Now, the first thing I have to say is, what do you expect? Like, the better the team, the better the players, the harder it is to beat them is sort of the point. Like, I don't really get the argument. Let's also just say that France are better than England. Like, they are. First of all, they have experience. They are the current World Cup holders, and they have arguably the best player in the world. Probably the best player in the world, in Mbappe. Now, I didn't predict France to win the World Cup, but that was because I didn't know if they could do it back to back. But they do definitely have the best team in the whole tournament, easily. Let's also say that if we look at this performance versus their Croatia performance a few years ago, they were the better team against France. That Giroud goal was a bit random. It sort of came from nowhere. I thought England controlled it. I thought Bellingham was great. I thought Henderson and Rice performed really well. I thought England were really good. And I thought the ref had a stinker as well. So, the amount of free kicks England should have had in dangerous areas where they could have impacted the game, who knows what could have happened. Also, if the manager is so important, why haven't I heard these Southgate out people mention Didier Deschamps? All they've done is mention Mbappe, Giroud, Griezmann. They talk about England, they talk about Southgate, but when they talk about France, they talk about the players. Where's the credit to Deschamps if the manager is that important? Now, this is the part where I just cannot defend Southgate, is the substitutions. Now, to me, how you can not bring on Rashford and Grealish, well, Rashford particularly, instead of Mount or Sterling, I think is actually horrendous management. I do. I think it's terrible. I think even not to bring on Grealish in the 96th minute. Really? I know Mount can attack and can score and has done well as a sub in the past. But Sterling? Really? Mount has not looked confident either this whole tournament. So why you'd bring on him and then Sterling, who's really going through a tough time right now? Why you'd bring someone on who probably isn't all they're meant to be? With what's happened in his private life, I just don't understand it. And then you've got Rashford, who's been one of the players of the tournament, off the bench. You don't bring him on. Really? And then he had a free kick in the last minute of the game. You have to bring on Kieran Trippier, surely. The man has scored a lot of free kicks for Newcastle. I think he has the best conversion rate in the Premier League, well, since he's arrived at Newcastle. And you don't bring him on to take the free kick? Seems extremely just poor management, I think. And I do think that sort of managerial performance can get you sacked. I do. But here's why I do think Southgate should stay, even though I do think there are reasons why he could go. I don't blame someone for thinking that Southgate should be sacked. It's just I think personally he shouldn't be. Now here's the reasons why. The first reason, and for me the most important, is that I am one of those who think your manager should be, I don't think you should have a German managing England. I don't think Tuchel should be manager of England. I don't think an Argentinian Pochettino should be managing England. I just don't think that should happen. It just seems odd to me. There's also, for me, progression every year, like I've mentioned. Against the better teams, there is major improvement there. I think France, they were the better team. They've topped the group in every single tournament they've been in. They've showed just amazing consistency. And he's actually changed his style now from a 5 at the back to a 4 at the back. And I think, especially in the next tournament, it's going to prove them a lot of good. And I would definitely give him another tournament just to give him one last chance with this team. And something Claude Makelele actually said yesterday was that it's very risky now to get rid of Southgate, and I do agree. And I would say in the next 2 tournaments, it's probably when this team maybe peaks. I would say the next World Cup is a big one. I think when you bring a new manager in, you're just sort of starting again, and there's a lot of work to be done. Whereas if you just keep Southgate, you keep doing what you're doing, and the players will naturally progress at their clubs and with Southgate, and I think they'll just be a lot more ready to win a World Cup or a Euros. I just also think he's done a very good job at England. I've been really impressed with Gareth Southgate. Cannot believe the amount of hate that he gets. Sort of makes me glad not to be English. It's international football. You've got to enjoy it a little bit more, I think, than club football. If you treat international football as if you have the right to win a tournament, you won't have a very enjoyable time supporting your national team. And if you are an England fan, I would just say, instead of putting so much demand on the players and the manager, just try and enjoy the privilege that you have of being from a country who's really good at football. Just try and join it a bit more. I think Scotland, Ireland, didn't even get to this World Cup. I probably won't see my team get to a World Cup for ages. So just try and enjoy it a bit more at these World Cups, I would say. Gareth Southgate has made some major mistakes, even in this tournament alone. But to me, I don't think someone should lose their job because of that. And then you have to start the process again from zero, from scratch. That's my opinion on Gareth Southgate. If you have enjoyed the video, give it a like. Let me know your stance on Southgate. Do you think he should be sacked? Or do you think he should stay? Let me know your opinion. Make sure you subscribe if you are new. And thank you for watching.